June 9th, 2026. Hello, I am John Michael Chambers, and welcome back to Conversations of Consequence, where I feature some of the important voices of our times to weigh in on the incredible events that are unfolding before our very eyes in this global defense war as we fight to take back our country, restore our freedoms, and enter into the golden age. And that is coming very soon. And joining us today here for an engaging conversation is my very special guest. You know him well, retired Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox. I'm going to spend a few moments and go over a little bit more of an extended bio than we normally do on the monthly panel. Pardon me. Tom Lennox, U.S. Army retired, is a frequent panel guest on our monthly Global Defense War military panel, as well as a frequent guest on my weekly live Global Financial Reset broadcast, where he's spoken about wealth repatriation and many other things relating to the great reset that is underway. So who is Tom Lennox? Thomas J. Lennox is a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel with extensive experience in logistics, finance, procurement, and large-scale systems management across decades of military and Department of Defense service. During Vietnam War, 1969 and 70, he served as a medical supply and equipment distribution officer for the 32nd Medical Depot and authored monthly intelligence reports submitted to the Surgeon General. Tom completed 1 year of specialized logistics and procurement training with the Defense Logistics Agency, where he developed requirements for a medical equipment management program that remained operational for 35 years. His assignments included Deputy for Logistics Operations, U.S. Army Berlin, Unit Commander for 400 personnel, Battalion Logistics Officer, Budget Officer for a Corps Support Command of 5,000 personnel, supporting global exercises and deployments. He was the Secretary of the General Staff and Battalion Executive Officer. Lieutenant Colonel Lennox also led organizations of up to 1,500 personnel and served as a reserve officer training program instructor at Oklahoma State University. He completed military comptroller training at Syracuse University and earned an MBA during an 18-month program. He was assigned a special mission to develop global budget requirements for U.S. Army logistics and authored the framework that transformed the financial management of spares and repair parts. Implementation of this process resulted in an annual savings exceeding $1 billion. As a program manager, he led a team of 20 former military professionals, developing advanced technologies for managing U.S. Army assets. He served as a consultant to the Army Strategic Logistics Agency, introduced radio frequency identification, RFID tags, initiated total asset visibility programs, authored post-Gulf War lessons learned, and created electronic technical manuals for all military equipment. It's extraordinary. As a Department of Defense highly qualified expert, Senior Executive Service Equivalent, SES, he provided expertise in logistics, military finance, systems analysis, change management, risk management, and business process re-engineering. He served as senior advisor for 2 major Army ERP systems with annual expenditures exceeding $1 billion. He conducted risk and deployment assessments for major Air Force and Army IT innovations. One Air Force logistics system was canceled. Why? Based on his assessment. He also developed and implemented 15 end-to-end Department of Defense business processes. As a senior analyst and consultant, Lieutenant Colonel Lennox authored the document that led to the creation of the Army Installation Management Command, contributed to U.S. Army change management plans, revised the Army budget process, and developed outsourcing and privatization strategies across Army and Air Force operations. He's also the author and co-author of numerous papers that led to significant changes in U.S. Army management processes, and Tom's education includes a BSBA in accounting, an MS in general business, an MBA in military controllership. And you can connect up with a man of this extraordinary background by emailing him, and he'll do his best to get back to you. T for Tom. T Lennox, Lennox, 99 at gmail.com. And perhaps this will be up on the screen a little bit later. All right. Well, welcome our good friend to Conversations of Consequence, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox. Hello, sir.
Hello. It's great to be here.
Good to see you. In a different seating, different format. We'll take our time here. The mission here to our audience, you're going to get to, I'm going to get to learn more. We're all going to get to learn more about Tom Lennox in just a moment as we stroll back in time a little bit. But stick around, because we're also going to get into Colonel Lennox weighing in on all the critical issues that are affecting us today and his forecast for our better tomorrow. So, having said that, Tom, before we get into your analysis of the current events, tell us, sir, if you will, go any way you choose with this. Where were you born, and what was life like for a young Tom Lennox growing up back then?
I was born in San Luis Obispo, California. My father was a fighter pilot for the U.S. Marine Corps. He was 20 years old when he went into the Pacific. I was born shortly after he returned from the Pacific in August of 1945. He and my mother got married. It's a very interesting story because there were four couples that hung out a lot together in the San Diego or in the San Luis Obispo area. They were all pilots. And one day, one of them looked up and said, "Tomorrow we're all going to get married." All four couples. All four couples got married. All four couples stayed together for over 50 years.
Wow,
Absolutely amazing. And
that
all
doesn't
four
happen these
pilots
days.
survived. All four pilots survived. And they flew Corsairs, not just little
Wow.
bitty airplanes. So I grew up mostly in New Jersey. Uh, Went to, let's see, elementary school, and then I went to junior high, and then I went to high school in New Jersey. Um,
Mhm.
I worked from the time I was about 13 on until I graduated college. I worked part-time jobs. Um, I worked a lot, and I was when I turned 15, I was hired to work in a store that eventually, before I graduated from high school, he had given me the keys to the store so I could open it and close it on weekends and stuff. Uh, Pretty interesting. Uh,
That says a lot for a 15-year-old, I'll say that. Yeah.
yeah. So I went to school at American University. I started out wanting to be a lawyer. I realized I had to learn a foreign language, and I can't learn a foreign language for all it takes. So I eventually ended up studying accounting so I could graduate. I have an
Mhm.
undergraduate degree in accounting, and I was engaged to a young lady, and American University did not have any kind of an ROTC program or anything like that. And her father was a active duty colonel, and he found a program for me to get commissioned into the Medical Service Corps instead of getting drafted. It's it. It was legitimate during Vietnam. There were a lot of people that got commissions because they had skill sets
Mhm.
that the Army needed. Uh,
Yes.
Went to Germany in 1960, let's see, 68, 1968. I believe it was 68. Uh, those early dates are challenging. Went to Vietnam 1969 to 1970. Um, Interesting experience. Uh, I was I did a lot of different things. Uh, wrote papers for the commander of the depot, managed the shipping and receiving operations, then went and did a closeout of a medical facility down in the southern part of Vietnam. Um, and I came back, and somebody decided I ought to go get a year's training in uh, how the wholesale side of the military logistics operation worked. So I did that for a year, and then I went to uh, Washington, D.C. as a very young captain, the youngest captain in the group. We were assigned to develop finance and logistics systems for the Army Medical Department. One day, my boss looked at me and he said, "Tom, I want you to go up to Walter Reed Medical Center and look at their property management system and come back and tell us if we can use it for the entire Army." I went up and I spent a week there, and I came back and I said, "There's no way you can use that system. It doesn't work." And he said, "Okay, write me a new one." So I wrote it. I wrote the system specifications. Those system specifications were 95% adopted, and the system ran for 35 years. And it ran on an IBM, what was it? Really old era IBM system. From there, I branch transferred to the Quartermaster Corps, went to Fort Lee, Virginia, spent almost a year there. Part of it was going to the Officer Advanced Course for captains. I did that. Then I went to Berlin. I spent 3.5 years in Berlin. Had some really good jobs in Berlin. For a young captain, I had 400 soldiers at one point. I had Battalion S4, which was a pretty good deal. And then for the last 6 months, I was a Deputy Chief of Supply and Services for the U.S. Army Berlin. Went from Berlin to graduate school at Syracuse, did Syracuse master's program. That program, I took courses from the guy who wrote the original book on the structure of military finance. Really interesting. What McNamara implemented when he was the SecDef, that system was written by a guy in 1954 who was one of my professors. Jesse Burkhead was his name.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Fort Bragg, and I spent 5 years at Fort Bragg. At Fort Bragg, I did all kinds of interesting things. And John, you talked about them. I was a budget officer. I was an S4. I was a secretary of the general staff, and I was a battalion executive officer. Most of the time, I was a major in the Army. Then I went out and taught some ROTC for about a year and a half. And then I came back to the Pentagon for my last 2.5, 3 years of the Army. Did all kinds of interesting stuff in the Pentagon. I was a budget guy. I was what do they call it? I was the executive officer to a general. And then he would give me little assignments to write papers. And that's pretty much my military career.
Well,
When I left,
that's extraordinary.
when
Tom,
I,
if you would go ahead.
hmm?
Go ahead. Continue. I'm sorry.
when
Go
I
ahead.
left when I retired from the Pentagon, I went to work for a little company that I was the 30th employee. Stayed there for 2, 3 years, and then I got a offer to become a program manager, and I did the program management job for 7 years in the Army Strategic Logistics Agency. At one point there, I had about 30 people that worked for me, and we did a lot of neat stuff. Uh,
Mhm.
And then after that, what did I do after that? I went to work for a small company, and then I started a company of my own.
Hmm.
We had a software package that a German had developed. It was really good. Problem when you have a new software company is you have to raise a lot of money. We never
Yep.
got to the $10 million I needed to make it work. We got to about 3 million.
Yep.
Been at it for 4 years, and I said, I'm done. And shortly after that, they hired me as a highly qualified expert, SES equivalent. My
Hmm.
leg just cramped a little bit. And from there, let's see, I left that in 2010. I became a business developer, did business development for 8 or 10 years, and then COVID hit and I retired. I said, you can't do business development if you can't talk people face to face. So I said, I'm done.
Hmm.
And I was about 74 years old at that time. So
Well, thank
anyway,
you for walking us through some of the highlights through the decades. We greatly appreciate your service. Going to pedal back just for a minute. Quick question: how old were you, and when you enlisted for the first time in armed forces, U.S. Army, I would imagine. How old were you, and what inspired you to take this path in life at that time?
what inspired me was I was engaged to a young lady, and her father was a colonel in the Army. And so he kind of convinced me that I ought to join the Army as an officer. And that's what I did. I was about 22 years old, and I retired at
Gotcha.
42.
Thank you. To my producer, put up image 3. Uh, Tell us about what you see on this image, Lieutenant Colonel Lennox. What does that bring you back to?
That brings me back to the Pentagon. That's a picture probably when the Army sent me over to Australia to do a briefing to the Australian logistics community uh,
Hmm.
in Tasmania. They were in Tasmania for a 1 week session for all the officers in the logistics in the Australian Army. And I was flown over, and they had to have a bio with a picture and all that good stuff. And so I spent a
Hmm.
week in Tasmania, did about a 1 hour, 2 hour briefing to the Australians on how we operated financially and logistically in the U.S. Army.
Wow. Well, what comes to my mind, a little tongue in cheek, a little fun here. Let's send you and Bosie over there, Bosie and Lennox, to Australia today and get that place whipped up into shape. We could use you over there.
Uh,
Well, let's take a look at image number 4 to my producer. Tell us, Tom, where does this bring you back to? Who is the gentleman? What is
all right.
going on here?
This brings me back to the finest man I ever worked for. The man on the left is Colonel Bill Richardson. Colonel Bill Richardson was 50 at the time he retired. The retirement age for an officer was 55. He was 58 when he retired. Bill Richardson had a chart on the walls of his office, and it showed a bouncing ball. And his comment would be to every senior officer that came in, if your balls, if you try to get all your balls to hit 100%, you're going to fail on the other half. And he said, all I want to see you do is hit 85% on those bouncing balls. And if you hit 85%, you've done a hell of a good job. And Bill Richardson, you've heard of the Sante Raid in Vietnam. He led the Sante
Mhm.
Raid. Bill Richardson spent
Wow.
3 years in a Korean POW camp
Mm.
as a Army sergeant. He One day he looked at the sergeant's pay scale and the lieutenant's pay scale, because in those days you got the senior NCOs and one officer would go pay all the people. And he said, I can do that lieutenant's job, and it pays a whole lot better than my sergeant's pay.
Mhm.
So he became an officer. And finest man I ever worked for. Absolutely superb. That's what that brings me back to. Working for him
Extraordinary
as his
story. Thank you.
the general staff.
Thank you for sharing that with us, sir. Let's go to image number 5. If I think we got one more image. Yes, we do. All right, what's happening here, and who's the gentleman there?
The gentleman there is General Hudacek, two-star general.
Hmm.
He used to call me Tiger. That was his nickname for me. And I worked directly for him on spares and repair parts analysis for the Army. We did a major program to determine how to better manage them in the Army. Uh, and I actually shared an office with him. Great, great individual. He had a sense of morality that was higher than most of his contemporaries. You know, he did not tolerate immorality from the people that worked for him. That was General
Understood. Thank
Hudacek.
you. You know, we sit here today. Are there any of the gentlemen that you served with in any capacity over a long career in various aspects of the armed forces that you're still in touch with today?
I am not in. The last time I talked to Colonel Richardson was probably 10 or 15 years ago. One of the things about me is I tend to be a very individual person. And
Mhm.
I have observed over the years that there are very few people I get real close to and keep in touch with. That's just who I am.
Mhm. Understood. Actually, quite wise, um, because the world we live in today, who we want in our
Yes.
circle. Yeah. Pardon me, folks. You shared with us a few stories during the first segment of our discussion here. Is there anything else during your time of service uh, that you care to share with our viewers uh, before we move on into some other topics?
Berlin was interesting. We were behind the
How
wall.
so? Hmm.
Uh, you know, Berlin, 1974 to 77, 3.5 years. Um, one of the biggest challenges we had was there were a lot of former Vietnam soldiers that came over, and there was a significant drug problem in the command. And some people ignored it, others paid attention to it. And
Hmm.
there was a rule that the commanding general put on all of us. It said, if a person's name appears on my blotter 3 times, you're going to come in front of me and explain why that person is on my blotter 3 times, and you're not processing him out of the Army. That's a pretty stiff rule. But
Yeah.
if you were a company commander, as I was, and you followed that rule, you never had a problem with the general. But if you didn't follow
Right.
that rule, you didn't keep your job. And he eventually became a 4-star general. And he was a great man. He was a good man to work for because you knew exactly what the rules were. Follow the rules, you're good to go. Don't follow the rules, and you got a real problem,
Pay the price.
Captain.
You bet. You bet. All right. So one last question in the military space, and then to our audience, we're going to take Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox experience to the present time. and have Tom weigh in on things that are on your mind. Before we go there, one last question. What was it like being a comptroller for the Department of Defense? I mean, how could you summarize that experience?
Comptroller is a very interesting position. Um, One of the challenges, and I'm going to go back to when I was a budget
Mhm.
officer. I was a budget officer for the first COSCOM at Fort Bragg. We had soldiers all over the world. We had very many different units. And when Jimmy Carter was president, he decided he wanted to do something called zero-based budgeting. So he did zero-based budgeting, and he cut what was a $10 million budget to $7 million. And one day a friend of mine called me who I'd worked with many, many years before. And Mo said, Tom, we got a money problem. So I went down to talk to him. I said, well, what's the problem? He said, well, you give me $35 an hour to fly a helicopter. It costs me $135 to fly that helicopter. How in the hell are you going to get us enough money so we can fly the helicopters? Because the Army helicopters were being used for rescue within the state of North Carolina by the military police, not only by the military police, but by the state police and by city police to pick up people and fly them to hospitals. And I said, I don't know, but we'll see what we can do. But those were the kinds of things that people at the top didn't understand. Later in my career, when I was doing work as a civilian, advising the financial system for the Army, uh, the people from Europe came over and we were talking about helicopters. And they said, you know, we get paid $200 an hour to fly a helicopter. It costs $350 an hour to fly a helicopter. There's a financial disparity. I said, that hasn't changed in 30 years. So that's one of the things that strikes me about the comptroller business. The other one that strikes me
Okay.
about the comptroller business is people don't understand that the military is virtually inauditable. And the reason it's virtually inauditable is there's two general ledgers. There's a budgetary ledger and a financial ledger. There's probably 100 different lines of accounting that you have to track. And you talk about
Mm.
equipment has a procurement equipment, then you have the budgetary stuff for the parts, and then you have the people. I had a friend of mine was developing the personnel management system for the Army. Now they were taking an off-the-shelf system called PeopleSoft. Unfortunately, PeopleSoft was built for a company like General Motors, where people stay in a job for 30 years or 20 years or
Hmm.
15 years, but the turnover might be 10% in a year. In the Army, the turnover in one unit can be 10% a month, depending on
Wow.
what kind of unit. If you're a
Hmm.
special forces specialist, you might go out 12 different times in the year and you move from one unit to another unit and back to your home unit. And there's a payroll thing, there's a special pay piece of that, which involves going into combat and leaving combat. And then there's other special pays that people have. You can't, auditing that is like auditing the wall. It's just not doable. And then you've got a
Understood.
wholesale system that buys the parts, the retail system that sells the parts, the units that have budgets that buy the parts. It's not the same as going out and auditing any big company. And the military is a what's now probably $700 billion a year, $800 billion a year. And
Hmm.
it's phenomenal. And then there's all the black stuff. And they talk about that in the news media. The black programs are unbelievable. I was talking to and this is probably a longer conversation, but I was talking to the Secretary of the Army for Financial Management. We were at a function and we were talking about Afghanistan and, uh, the little buggies that people run around in the mountains with. I can't remember the name of them, but they're little two-wheelers or three-wheelers or four-wheelers that people go riding in the woods with. And I said, "Oh, Special Forces buys those every day." She said, "How do they do that?" I said, "Because if you want to buy something in a place like Afghanistan, there's a guy who can get it for you, and he'll get it for you,
Hmm.
and you're going to pay him cash." She said, "Well, that's not right." I said, "I don't care if it's right or not, lady. You have to understand that when I'm at war, I'm going to get that little vehicle I need, and I'm not going to go back to the States and wait 6 months for it. I need it tomorrow. And there's a guy in Afghanistan who can get it for me tomorrow. So he's going to get cash for it."
Wow.
And that's one of the challenges of managing the US Army's money is understanding how it's used and where it's used and when it's
Hmm.
used. People don't know, even the leadership. It's fascinating stuff.
Well, thank you.
Anyway,
It is
you got
fascinating.
more
Thank you
than I had
for those
intended to give.
insights. It's okay. I appreciate it, and so do our viewers. I think Donald Rumsfeld had some problems with budgets on this September 10th, but we'll leave that out there. Okay, let's talk about the EBS. Um, let me state this to our viewers. I know all of us, myself included, uh, we're all waiting for this to happen. We all feel it is a necessity for a host of reasons. Um, and unless and I interview a lot of esteemed guests, on the military and intelligence side on various programs. And unless you get a direct memo from the White House itself, we put together our best ideas and our best assessment based on the information we see, just like the public is doing concerning the EBS. And some folks feel it may be coming very soon, like June or July. There's certainly been some comms that indicate that, even broadly speaking, by the president. I can isolate a few of those, um, but anyway, what's your best view on when first off, will the EBS happen? We'll start there, and if so, when? And when I say
Okay.
when, again, no one has the full crystal ball, but in your analysis, your opinion, when do you think this might happen and why?
I believe that the EBS must happen because there are still so many people who don't know why the change is happening. They hear all kinds of
Hmm.
stuff, but they have no idea. They don't know about the children. They don't know about the
Yep.
leadership of many countries, not just the US. They don't know about Queen Elizabeth being a pedophile. They don't know about
Mhm.
all those kinds of things. So there has to be something that ties it all together. And it may scare people, a lot of people, when they see
Yep.
the hanging of Barack Obama, for example, knowing he was probably hung 5 years ago because he refused. He was given a deal, he broke the deal, literally broke
Got
the
it.
deal within a week. So that's one of the things that has to happen, that people have to see what's going on. There also has to be something where the banks start to disappear. The banks are disappearing, but the people don't understand why they're disappearing. There has to be something that tells them. The when is a hard question. I used to say it had to happen before 4th of July. But I started thinking about it the other day, and the FIFA World Cup starts in the United States the end of this week. And it doesn't end until sometime in July. And this is a big thing for the president and a big thing for the world. The number of people that will see what's going on in the United States in the FIFA World Cup is going to be unbelievable. Millions of people, maybe billions of people will watch it. So that question mark for me, when I see the comments that say, well, it's the EBS is going to start on 24 June. Well, 24 June to 4 July is right in the middle of the FIFA World Cup. They're not going to do that, I don't think. I would be very surprised because President Trump plays a 5-level chess board, and he's looking at all those things and the impact of all those things on all the people, not just the US people, but the people around the world and his off-world friends, of which there are a lot. So when we start to look at that, then we have to say, okay, when is it logical to have an EBS? It must happen because people have to understand why they got a gold-backed currency, if nothing else, because they're going to go to a gold-backed currency and it's not far off. And they're going to find out that the IRS is gone. They're going to find out that the Fed is gone. They're going to find out that all the Feds around the world are gone. They're going to find out about Tartaria, which Putin has already said he's going to start to release the history of Tartaria. That's a big deal because Tartaria was a
What is the
very...
hit? Yeah,
Yeah,
please
go
define
ahead.
in layman's terms Tartaria. Walk us through that.
Tartaria was a civilization on this planet that had technology that far exceeds anything we have today. It operated out of Russia, but there was Tartarian. There are buildings in the United States that were built by the Tartarians. There are buildings underneath Niagara Falls that were built by the Tartarians. The Tartarians left many, many what people call churches. They were actually energy centers because they had connections to the global energy network. Tartaria, and I haven't read a lot about it, but I know that it is a significant part of history that was destroyed probably in the 1800s and earlier. And Russia is where the Tartarian came from. If you heard of the Tartars, Tartarians,
Well, thank
they
you.
were a
Yes.
peace-loving, peaceful people, and they had all kinds of free energy, free, just beautiful things that worked.
Hmm.
And so Putin has announced in the last 2 weeks that he's going to revive the history of Tartaria. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
People are going to have a lot of trouble with that when they realize how much certain people took away from them over the last 300 years. Let's say 300 years.
Yes.
So
You
that's
bet.
Tartaria is huge. And
Thank you, sir.
we have
Back to the EBS. Go ahead.
back to the EBS.
I was saying, yeah, I have a question. The EBS, I've talked with a lot of folks, talked with you before as well as others. What how long do, and again, crystal ball question, but emergency broadcast system um, will disrupt the normal flow of certain activities as things are being shown and redirected in pretty much all over the world. How here at home, well, in America, how long do you think the EBS will be activated? Will it be the same everywhere? Will it be compartmentalized, longer term here, shorter term here? Well, I mean, your best estimate, how long will that last? That that broadcast.
Some people think it's already started in certain places. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's going to take several days to show people all the illegal things that have happened, maybe 4 or 5 days. And then you've got the second stage of illegal things, the financial illegal stuff. They have to understand. They have to know why their bank account's not there. They have to know why they're going to be going to QFS. They have to understand that. That takes time. It's not five
Mm-hmm.
minutes. I've talked to people
Right.
about QFS, and it's not a 5 minute discussion. It's more like a 5 hour discussion because we're talking a system that's totally different than anything we've ever experienced. There's no bank, there's no credit card, there's you and your phone. And it's not the phone you have today, it's a different phone. It's a specially built phone that allows you to vote, controls education, and controls your money. Fascinating stuff. So
It
the
is
EBS
fascinating.
has
I've
to
also
happen.
heard, go ahead.
You've also heard, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. I also heard along the lines, now that you've gone into QFS world, that the capabilities of AI in QFS also, I don't want to misstate it, but in layman's terms, also prevents algorithm control, thus censorship. Have you heard that?
Yes. In fact, the thing about the QFS is if you're involved in illegal activities, you won't
Hmm.
have any money. It'll
Good.
disappear. If
Yep.
a country starts a war, all their money disappears. Think about that because they're going to be all
Yeah, no
be on a
kidding.
gold standard. They're going to all be on a gold backed currency and they will not have access to their money.
Hmm.
There is nothing that can track you and I in that system. Nobody can get to your money. If some bank or some collection agency, they can forget it. They can't get to it. No judge can get to it. No court can get to your money. No policeman can get to your money. That's the critical piece. And that's why when people ask me, they say, well, it's going to be Ripple, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. I look at them and say, no way. It's off world. It was developed jointly by certain people from this planet and other planets. And that's what it is. And there's certain
Hmm.
people I've heard that Steve Jobs never died, that he helped develop
Yeah, no,
the,
no.
the this thing that you're going to use. But
Hmm.
the off-world technology is where it is, unless Tesla is still alive.
Well, we know he got his
That's
patents,
Nikolai
and
Tesla.
that's important. Yes.
Nikolai
Let me
Tesla.
ask you. Mhm. Go ahead.
Go ahead, ask me.
We were talking about the currency not too long ago, a short bit ago, and I want to just follow up on that. Sure, we can clearly see with the March 26th release from the U.S. Treasury that we have a new currency being developed. You connect enough dots from the president, from Scott Bessent, from the Treasury Department, and um, and Dan Scavino's having fun with the posts over this several months. You connect all those dots, it sure looks like we'll have a gold and commodity and other valued asset backed currency. The question is, and again, it's a question that I should probably not ask, but I know it's on the mind of everyone listening. And I know it's a crystal ball question, but do you see this new currency coming in while we still have, of course, our Federal Reserve note dying and we have the new currency submerging? Do you see that happening in the year 2026 or 2027?
2026. The Federal Reserve has been dead since 2019. It'll be
Music
2026.
to our ears. Hmm.
That's my
Yeah, I would
opinion.
concur with that. Yep. No,
And
I think 2026 is probably accurate. It sure seems
and
so.
when in 2026, I've heard July 14th. Some
Hmm.
somebody commented
Okay.
July 14th. There will be no more fiat currency. I don't know that that's going to be true. I would speculate. I won't speculate on anything because I expected that by 2021 or 2022, this whole thing would be fixed. And it's
We all
not.
did.
And
Yeah. Well,
so we've gone through 5, 6 years of,
yes.
and a very important 5 or 6 years, because in order to get all of the children rescued and all of the people that were guilty, at least in front of a military tribunal or on their way, it takes a lot of time. I told my wife today, I said, there's still 229,000 sealed indictments that have to be taken care of. And Ricardo has
Hmm.
talked about it's going to take more than a year. It's going to take a
Oh,
couple
yeah.
of years to get rid of
Hmm.
all those people. And
Sure.
Australia's got a whole nother problem, but they've got the same kind of problem.
Yes. To our viewers, I'd like to say, and I've said this on certain social media accounts and perhaps in other shows I host, um, having expectations in a psychological operation and information war is probably not a great thing, and we're all, guilty of it, if you will. I would say, in terms of expectations, just simply expect the unexpected. Let's not think in terms of dates, although we're all clamoring for that. We're on the edge of our seat. Let's think in terms of events and watch them unfold. I feel that the average person like myself out there, um, I don't worry about what I cannot control. I just surround myself with like-minded people with expertise in these various subject matters. Gather your sources of good content. Stay in that lane. Pray, plan, prepare, and whatever you can control, go ahead and take care of it based on the information we have. Everything else, God's in control. He chose Trump. He's in control, and he's in control of purging the bad apples out of the world, but out of the military. We
Yep.
have incredible white hats, and we're getting things done. So everyone needs to just, we just got to hang in there a little bit longer. I want to talk about the birth certificate. Tom, you did an episode with me, as you told me back in January, I think it was. We republished it maybe a week ago because people are asking for it, and we just newly published it, and we told everyone it was a republishing. And because a clip of you went viral in there, 2 million views that we knew of. I don't know how many views it's garnished since. It was a 57-minute clip, I think. But I remember the episode. It was you and I for I think the full show. We had a lot of third-party content in there, including from Woodrow Wilson and so forth. The birth certificate. Without walking through all the detail, because we've got that on record, but for those that didn't see it yet, I encourage you to go look it up on our Rumble channel. But give us the bullet point, dispelling the myth that it's a conspiracy only. What is the birth certificate issue? What happened to us? And what is the resolution of that's coming?
Okay. Yeah, around 2019 or 1919, Woodrow Wilson signed a law creating the birth certificate. The reason for creating the birth certificate was to create a society of debt slaves. That means people who had debt and they were slaves to their debt. They created the Social Security system. They created all the debts, the mortgages, all that, credit cards, all that debt. If you look at the average individual, probably their taxes and debt takes them, let's see, if we look at a 12-month year, probably takes them 7 months to pay for all that from their job. It was designed to create debt slavery. And every birth certificate has a number on the bottom. That number creates you as a corporation. The reason your name is in all cap letters is because that signifies you're a corporation. You go into court, you're a corporation. You don't exist as an individual. You go in to pay your borrow money for a house, the bank goes to your corporate stock and they take the money from you, issue it to you, charge you interest on it, but it's already been paid by you. So the whole process of the birth certificate, everything about it was created to make you a permanent debtor. In other words, a debt slave.
Yes.
And I read something today written by somebody about that, and he said, "Well, everybody's worth $1 to $2 million." That's not necessarily true. Maybe somebody 20 years old is worth 1 to 2 million in the debt system. Donald Trump's worth $12 billion for the transactions involving his bond, which was initially issued. They issued a bond. The bond is out there in the marketplace being sold and resold and resold and resold every day. Just like your mortgage
On each and
gets
every one of the
resold.
on each taxpayer?
On
That
every taxpayer.
bond is created. Gotcha. Continue. Yes.
Every single person that's got a birth certificate, from the time they're 1 day old to the time they die, they have been in that system with a bond in their name. And that bond trades back and forth, up and down, and moves forward. And the older the person gets, the higher the value of the bond. We don't know how much debt bond there is out there. We know that for somebody my age, it's a hell of a lot of money. But estimating what it's trading for today, we don't know. We really don't. It's a pure guess.
Who profited? Who profited? Let's say I'm 68. I am. I'll be 68 years old. Ironically, on a very special date this year, every year, but this year special, June 24th. So I'm 68 years old. All these years I've paid taxes. I got my stamp on my Woodrow Wilson birth certificate, and it's become a bond, and it's been traded. Who has been profiting off of my life's energy? Who?
Who's been trafficked? Everybody who has bought and sold that bond. And we
So
don't,
is that part of the part of the tabulation of what might come back to me in a repatriation of wealth? Is that what
in theory, it
part of
is
that?
part
Hmm.
of that. Um, People over the age of 60 will get a lot more than people who are 20 years old. And I've seen it broken down, and I wouldn't even want to guess if it's right,
Oh,
you know,
yeah, no
because it's
problem.
always done by somebody who doesn't really know. They just said, well, everybody over the age of 60 will get $65 million. We don't know. We have no
Hmm.
idea. We do know that the 13 families traded our bonds a lot, and the big bankers traded our bonds a lot. And every time I bought a house, they took a little money out of my thing, loaned it to me, and then charged me interest on it.
Fascinating.
So it's
Okay,
a
what about
fascinating world. Go
it
ahead.
is a couple of other things. As you mentioned this, you unpacked four questions for me, so pardon me. But let's talk about the taxation for a moment. Folks, to our viewers, we're talking with Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox here about the broad subject of the repatriation of our stolen life's energy, our wealth. So you have to mention the IRS. And the IRS, of course, is illegal and unconstitutional. Do you anticipate in the broad subject of wealth repatriation, all the taxes, income taxes we paid, if it's unconstitutional and illegal, will we see some of that money coming back?
In theory, that's true. Under Nasara,
Okay.
we will get, in theory, and I'm going to say it's in theory because we really don't know um, what's going to happen. We will get some, if not all, of our tax money back and all of our interest
And
payments back.
Scott Bessent and others have put out, short memes and statements on the Truth Social and X and briefings and such, dripping that on us. Well, we'll get a $2,000 check at some point, and you're going to get the biggest tax return you've ever gotten in your life. This is what our own Treasury Secretary is telling us. And as you mentioned, Tom, that the the Federal Reserve, for all intents and purposes, began to, be reconstructed back in 2019. Really, essentially, the key roles moved into the Treasury Department. Well, who's in charge of the Treasury? Scott Bessent. And who does he answer to? The executive branch. And who's in charge of the executive branch? Donald Trump. So, folks, this isn't conspiracy. If you listen to what they're saying, they're warming us up for what Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox is talking about, a glorious period of time of wealth repatriation because it was illegal, unconstitutional, and we were robbed. I mean, that's my layman's summary of it. Am I off the mark, sir?
Yeah. Trillions of dollars since 1913, stolen from the people. The fascinating thing about the IRS is it's a corporation incorporated in Puerto Rico, and all the money collected by it goes to the Rothschilds or the Vatican.
Yeah.
Every dollar.
And that answers the question earlier, who profits from our labor, whether it's the birth certificate trading and or the taxes, and all roads lead to London and the Vatican. Interesting. And the
Yep.
Bible, of course, speaks of a jubilee period, right? I mean, we can enter that narrative in here to an extent. Any viewpoints about that? Debt forgiveness.
Yes. In the Bible, in the biblical sense, every 7 years there was debt forgiveness. And that goes back historically a long ways.
Hmm.
It started to disappear, I'm going to say, when the Khazarians took over the Jewish religion.
Was that
Because the Khazarians operate globally. Our media is run by the Khazarians. Khazarians are one of the three pieces of what we call Judaism today. The Khazarians,
yes,
the Zionists, and then we have the true Edenites, the true Jews. The other two are not true Jews. To be a true Jew, your mother had to be Jewish, but it's
yes,
not Jewish. It had to be of the 12 tribes,
hmm
and she had to be born of the 12 tribes, not married into the 12 tribes, born of the 12 tribes. Big difference. Um,
yes.
so we look at the Khazarians, we look at the Zionists, and we look at all the issues, and that's why we've said that Israel is last,
Yes.
because Israel
The
is the home of the Rothschilds banking and the home of the Khazarians and the Zionists. And people
Save
don't
Israel for
realize that.
last.
Hmm?
The famous Q post, save Israel for last. Before I want to jump
Yeah.
into Israel in 1 second. We got two more questions. We're in the second hour, just kicked in. I want to ask you before we talk about Israel and Iran, current events unfolding today, in relation to what you were alluding to, save Israel for last. We can jump into that in a minute. I want to finish off on the money. Elon Musk, for those paying attention, has stated numerous times in scores of different interviews with different entities and his own public posts on social media that we are going to have high was the key word, high universal income. He has stated, I'm paraphrasing Elon Musk, he's also stated, um, I think maybe in 3 to 4 years, 3 to 5 years, something of that nature, soon you won't have to work. You can if you choose to, but you will not have to work. He has stated there'll be no need ever to save. And then he dovetails that into high universal income. To our audience, Lieutenant Colonel Lennox just talked about all the repatriation of wealth situation. Now we enter an Elon, and I referenced the president and Scott Bessent and others. Now we're talking about Elon Musk, who serves a very important role in this administration in multiple capacities. High universal income. My question to you, Tom, is as I process this, um, I think of AI and robotics. And when you listen to Elon Musk talk about advanced, I don't have the proper terminology, but advanced AI and advanced robotics, he's also indicated, in the not too distant future, that pretty much will take over much of the world's uh, production jobs, basically. And that will bring costs down to near nothing because you're not paying a robot. Of course, there's a cost of getting it developed. But at the same time, am I crazy, Tom? And at the same time, they know that's coming. We're going to have universal high income. We're going to have a repatriation of wealth. We don't need the jobs. Now we'll do humanitarian projects, and maybe there'll be some work that'll be available. Am I climbing up the right tree here? Help me out. I'm connecting these dots. That's what I see.
Okay. There will be some level of universal income. At the level that Elon Musk talks about is not realistic. And the reason I say not realistic is if I allow AI and robots to run my manufacturing, and I have people sitting at home drinking 6 beers a day, because that's what you have. The guy who works in the shop gets a 6 pack of beer on the way home and drinks it. Um, there are going to be requirements for people to work. because we need people to work. We need people to farm, real farming, not the electronic farming that Gates and all those people talk about, but real farming, getting their hands dirty, getting down in the dirt. We need people that get grease on their hands because they love to fix cars. Because there are people,
Mhm.
you know, they buy a car and they start tearing it apart because they want to do new things to it. Those people are going to go nuts if they don't work. People expect to do some level of work. When you get to my age, yeah, maybe I don't have to work anymore. But I consider what I'm doing now having fun, talking with you and talking with the people. But it's actually, to some extent, work for me. I put my brain to work. If you give people, and you've got 12 strands of DNA, and you got a pineal gland that works, those people are going to go crazy because they have to have something to keep them occupied, whether it's singing, music, plumbing, building cars, making stuff grow out of the ground. People will not give up the ability to work. I started working delivering newspapers at 13. I quit working at 74 because I couldn't do what I did. But if I had been able to, I would still be working today.
Well,
I
there's
don't
great,
believe,
clearly, continue. Go ahead.
I've got a good friend. Fred retires at the end of June. Fred is the same age I am. He's 6 months younger than I am. He's going to finally retire at the age of 80 from DOD. That's, you know, why? Because he likes making a difference. And
Yes.
people will
Purpose.
not want to sit in front of the boob tube 8 hours a
Hmm.
day. They're going to want to do something, And singers, they don't stop singing.
Yes.
Artists don't stop painting. Carpenters don't stop building
Hmm.
because they're going to probably do it better than the robots and the AI. I think Elon is right that there will be some level of money that everybody will get every year, depending on their age. But I don't
Hmm.
believe that Trump will allow the world to go to pot because it'll go to pot. You Ricardo made the comment that if you give them all that money, 5 years later, they won't have any.
Correct. It's like the guy who wins the lottery. He's in bankruptcy 3 years
Yeah,
later.
same as the
Yeah,
lottery winner. But if you give the guy
sure.
a little bit of money every year so he can do what he wants to do, what God gave him the gift capability to
Yeah.
do, because God gives us a gift. He gives us a gift of what we can do. My wife's a singer.
Yes.
She has the gift to be able to
Yeah.
sing, create music. My kids are artists, two of them. God gave them the gift to be artists. The oldest one's a photographer. The youngest one does her own advertising design company. They're not going to be happy sitting on their ass, which is what
Sure.
Elon's talking about. And 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 you know the mechanics, you know the guys that do the plumbing that love to do it. They love to solve the
Hmm.
problem. You know,
Hmm. Sure. Well, we don't have to work.
that's
That's kind of nice. But to your point, we get to use our innate gifts, talents, and abilities from our Creator to make a better world. and parents can actually raise their children, spend time with them, have a relationship. I see the world. I mean, I know there'll be a lot of hiccups en route to this day, but I see all this very good. And also disinformation is put out by high, powerful people from time to time to raise a narrative, gauge the public. To our audience, folks, I see some challenges ahead the next year, and many years to transform the whole world. But the golden age is upon us, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Let's jump into Israel and Iran real quickly here. Current on the news, we're recording this broadcast here on Tuesday the 9th here in Thailand. And as we're speaking, President and Netanyahu are having some words exchanged, and Iran and Israel having some bombs exchanged. We seem to be back in that situation. Q, save Israel for last. I'm seeing a lot of narratives in the last 4 or 5 months concerning Netanyahu and Israel. What's your analysis of the Q statement and where we are today, and how does it end up playing out in your crystal ball?
My crystal ball. I believe we're on about the fourth Netanyahu,
Ooh, okay.
third or fourth Netanyahu. I believe the first
Mm-hmm.
Netanyahu disappeared when Trump visited Israel right after he was elected. I believe we've been seeing clones or actors. Remember
Mm-hmm.
what Trump says about 200,000 people that are
Central casting.
from casting,
Mhm.
special casting or
Central
central casting.
casting. Central
Yeah.
casting,
So
established in
I think,
1925.
yeah. Ah,
Go ahead. You go ahead.
hang on a second. I got to stand up for a
Sure,
second.
no problem, sir. Take care of yourself.
Yeah,
You go full.
I have a tendency because I'm doing so much stuff that my legs will cramp a little bit. Okay, we're all right. We're all right. So,
We're on the final
that's my
stretch
first
here anyway,
comment.
sir, but thank you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
My first comment was that Netanyahu's been replaced and that he's been gone since 2017.
Mm.
The
Okay.
So what we have now is either a clone, because there were a lot of clones created, because clones have been created
Hmm.
since 1938. Um, I believe that the Iranians firing missiles on Israel was, I'm going to make a wild ass guess, was an
Okay.
agreement in the potential peace treaty between Trump and Iran.
Mm.
That Trump
Begs the question, why?
controls. Hmm? Question
I
what?
said it begs the question why, as to why that would have been written into the script. Um, but it's
That's in
above
the
my pay
script. It's
grade.
got to be in the script because
Yeah, it's
it was
happening.
done from it was done from the northernmost parts of Iran, which, by the way, touch on Afghanistan. The Iranians are in the process of agreeing with Trump on a lot of things that we don't know about and the media is full of
Hmm.
crap about. And I don't pay attention to the
Yep.
media. I really don't pay attention to what anybody says on the blogs about Iran and Trump because Trump plays 5D chess. He's so far ahead of people, so far
Hmm.
ahead. 195 IQ gets you a long ways ahead. He's time
Sure
traveled
does.
this whole thing. Damn,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
that leg doesn't like me.
Go
I
full
keep
screen. Go full screen with me, my producer. Go full screen to me. Tom, take a walk around the room. Do what you need to do. We can conclude this broadcast and do a part two if you like. We're about 10 minutes left, but if you would like to call it a day today, I'm happy to do so and bring you back in for part two, Conversations of Consequence. Would you prefer we do that, sir? Because I'm happy to do that.
We're
So,
good.
it's been a Mhm. Fascinating discussion. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi, which both Tom and I have referenced a few times in this broadcast, he's also on the record stating some of the things concerning the Iran conflict, or the Iran operation, I'll call it, has already happened and were being shown. Some aspects are still underway, and that feeds right
Yep.
into your narrative, sir, about you know, uh, already written into the script that these bombs need to be flying right now. How does it conclude in your estimation? The narrative you've put forward, which is highly probable. Netanyahu's been replaced some years back. This is part of the operation, and it'll have a conclusion. Q says, "Save Israel for last." Looks like we're there. What does last look like to you concerning
Last
Israel's
looks like
and
this.
the Zionists? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Last looks like this. There are a lot of people who live in Israel who live there because they believe it's the Jewish state. Um, you can't destroy, even though the state itself is illegal because of the Balfour Agreement and the Rothschilds, you can't damage those people. So what happens is the Mossad has to disappear. If the Mossad disappears and the leadership people, the guys like Netanyahu's deputies and all that, they all disappear. And that could happen like that because we have the capability to do that. If the Iranians fired the missiles in order to get Netanyahu to break Trump's agreement with him, gee, I wonder why. I wonder why. The why is because the Iranians are going to help destroy Israel.
Mhm.
My
Fascinating.
thought.
What I'd like to do, yeah, well, very intrigued. What I'd like to do,
Yeah.
sir, so you can get the relief you need
Well, I'm okay.
your leg.
Once I get the
Oh,
cramp going,
you
it's
okay?
gone. I'm
Can you
okay.
give me less than 10 more minutes? Okay, good.
Well, I
Then
can give you more
what
than
I'd like
that.
to move into. Well, thank you. I'm just cognizant of your comfort. I'd like to segue now. You mentioned earlier, and I didn't jump in on it, but I will now. The galactic support that we're getting, the fact that President Trump has gone through a portal of sorts, that takes us into uh, President Trump, Commander in Chief. I think it's through the military, his role as CIC, where we're now begun, as you know, releasing the tranches of files dating back to Eisenhower and all the data that's gone in there ever since, um, on the visits and so forth that have come to planet Earth from the other side, off-world activity. This isn't conspiracy, folks. This isn't Looney Tune stuff. This isn't crazy. It's being officially released. Top secret security files that every president has seen. And this president, the transparent president, is responsibly dripping this out to us now. Having said that, let's spend just a few minutes on what do you expect to come out of these files as time goes by. We're seeing some fascinating videos. I don't know if they're AI, if they're real or not. If they are AI and not real, that's a message from the president for something to come. He's having fun with us. I don't know, but the files are out there now. There'll be plenty more. Drip, 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 drip. Um, jump in any way you like, sir. What's happening with off-world activity as you see it?
The first thing I understand is that Trump is the commander in chief of the Galactic Federation. I saw that somewhere,
Okay.
and uh, and that's not surprising because the Galactic Federation and he have been in communication for years, not days, not months, but years. He's been to Jupiter, which is the home of the Galactic Federation. He's been in communication with their commanders. When they talk about the alliance that Trump
Hmm.
has for all of the global reset, there are
Hmm.
at least two or three, maybe more, members of the Galactic Federation who are actively engaged with his alliance, very actively engaged. And when we started building the QFS, there was a
Hmm.
very active engagement by their technology people in the creation of QFS. People don't understand that we have had galactics walking around amongst us for years and
Hmm.
years and years, hundreds of years, because they're waiting for the right time, because they've been afraid of the humans, because the humans fight wars all the time. For the
Kill
first time in
ourselves.
life,
Yeah.
we're moving to no war. 209
Hmm.
countries have signed that they will not fight a war in order to be part of the global asset goal asset-backed currency operations. The galactics have been looking for that for years, years and years and years. They finally are getting close. They want to see it happen, so they're actively working with Donald Trump. Now, I don't know how many of his close associates know how close he is to the rest, but I did hear that during the period 2020 to 2024, he and his family spent significant amounts of time off world. So, what I think will get revealed to us is how important it is to be in part of the Galactic Federation, how important it is to us to have a close relationship with these people. These people we call it God, they call it the prime creator. Think about that. The prime creator. That is a symbol of, they believe spiritually very much the same things we do. And there's a God within every one of us, there's a God within every one of them. And then there's the prime creator. Uh, there's something called the Akashi, I never get to pronouncing right. The
Ashkenaz?
Akashi
No,
record.
that's the Jews. Yeah. Yeah.
And the Akashi records have a record of everything in the galaxy and in other galaxies that we don't even know about. I saw something the other day about 13 soldiers that went off to some other galaxy, U.S. Army soldiers. 8 of them came back. Maybe it was 12. It was 12. 8 of them came back after 13 years. 2 of them stayed, and 2 of them died. And they went off in the 60s. So when
Wow.
we talk about this, it's important to understand there are good people and bad people. Some of the bad people we see that we think are real people are not real
Yeah.
people.
Hmm.
They're they're grays or reptilians. The reptilians can't
Mhm.
live without the blood of children. Interesting stuff.
Very
Fascinating.
interesting. And, it is, and, I already know I can see the comments coming once we publish this, and it's okay, folks. This gives the term new meaning to the term Great Awakening and Golden Age. I'll say that, and
Yeah.
to throw out a few bullets. You've got the Tesla patents. We know the story of that. Trump's uncle, MIT, etc. We have the Galactic Federation support. We have uh, Off-World Alliance and the Global Defense War Alliance. And by some estimates, 40 countries have been blowing up the tunnels and bringing the wealth back and rescuing and rehabilitating the children. We have 0 point energy from Tesla and Off-World, and zero gravity, and then the QFS, and all of this very loosely ties together, or at least it's on the same table of the puzzle we're trying to piece together. To our audience, I also know that this is going to butt up against a lot of deeply rooted religious beliefs and so forth and so on. And it is above my understanding and pay grade to have a comment or opinion about that. I will say that Captain Peter Matisu, a retired Navy, who's on the Eyes on Gitmo military panel I host monthly with Blaine Holt, General Blaine Holt, and Lieutenant Colonel Matt Meck and Wano Savin. He addressed it, and I wish that. So I encourage our viewers to go there, Eyes on Gitmo, current episode, and listen to Captain Pete Matisu help us walk through the challenges that many people will have as it relates to our Creator, the Bible, and off-world activity. It's a subject that's going to require, I think, it's going to take some years to sift through and sort through before things really start to make sense. I do know one thing: the truth sets us free, and we've been lied to a lot, and we're about to come across a
A
lot
whole
more
lot.
truths. And I appreciate you raising all these issues at the risk of people throwing some darts at you, even though most of our viewers love you to death. But you know what, folks? The stuff Lieutenant Colonel Lennox is saying isn't a Rod Serling script from the Twilight Zone. It's probably really in the vicinity of reality, and we're all, including the good Colonel, are learning as we go. And that's just incredible, and I'm glad you raised all those points. The way I see it in summary, and I've got one last question for you, is health and wealth. What we see here is a massive shift. I mean, our creator, whatever and whomever you perceive that to be, never intended for us to be in a world of scarcity and sickness. Intended us to be in a world of health and abundance. I see the collective of the latter part of what you've been discussing with our viewers as a move away from that dark, reptilian controlled, demonic, satanic, Luciferian world that has made this a prison planet for all of us as dead slaves, as you stated. We are moving away from that and into health and wealth. We didn't get much to talk about how all these technologies and alliances are going to keep us healthy. But let's close out with that, and then a final question. We see RFK Jr. working the legislative side. We see our great doctors, the truthful, awakened ones, educating everyone on how to stay healthy and how to combat those that took the jab and other things. And then, of course, we have light technology, scalar technology, frequency healing, med beds or medical beds. So what I see is a combination of, as God intended, health and wealth that kept us unhealthy and broke, being unwound as new things are coming in as God intended. So when we say it's a spiritual battle between good and evil, it certainly is. And in my humble opinion, God always wins. What's your view on the health side? And any comments about health from any aspect that you'd like to take that of what's incoming to heal the human body and keep us healthy and get Big Pharma marginalized to very little bit of value that they will eventually have, if any?
I'm going to go to Big Pharma always says that something's bad for you because they can't patent it. I'm going to add one thing to that. Between 1850 and 1935, the number one drug prescribed for people by doctors was called marijuana, only it didn't go by that name. But that's the plant that was used to treat people. 85 years, and then all of a sudden it became bad. I tell people who are friends of mine who go to doctors all the time, I say, you know, the Lord created something to heal every single thing that goes wrong with you. And I'm going to go back to
Mhm.
myself. I'm going to say, somewhere around 2005 or 2006, I had a really bad incident with a cold. I ended up in a hospital with oxygen and all that stuff. And they said I had something called COPD. And they gave
Mhm.
me a corticosteroid to take. And they gave me albuterol when the breathing got really tough. So I did that for about 5 years. I had cataract surgery, and my surgeon said, you have steroid induced cataracts.
Oh,
I've been taking
yeah.
corticosteroids for 5 years. So one day, and this is before the COVID and all that stuff, somehow I ended up finding Miracle Mineral Solution developed by a guy by the name of Hubbard. And so I sent away for some. And I tried it, and I threw away my corticosteroid. I threw away my albuterol, and I took chlorine dioxide, the Miracle Mineral Solution. Since then, I went back to my doctor one day and he said, I love vaccines. I never went back to that doctor. Then I went to my other doctor and she said, if Fauci says it, it's right. Never went back to her either. Instead, I've gone to natural remedies and I'm healthier than my brothers and sisters. My wife and I are both very healthy. And I tell my friends, God created a solution for every single thing you have wrong with you. You just have to do the research and find it. And
Thank you.
uh, I am convinced that the med beds, I listen sometimes in the car, now my truck, to frequencies. There are certain
Mm.
frequencies that heal.
Hmm.
963 heals the pineal gland. Um, when they changed the frequency on music from 432 to 440, 432 is a healing frequency. That's why they changed it to 440. Rockefeller did that. So there are healing frequencies. And the med beds use healing frequencies. But one of the things people have to understand is if you don't have a spiritual relationship with God, most of this stuff is not going to work for you because the expectation is that you're going to accept that the healing frequencies come from God. They were created in 1910 by a guy that the Rockefellers made sure got killed. They were also created by Nikolai Tesla, who created the first med beds in 1890s. They stole all of his stuff when he died in a hotel broke. So the med beds are real. They will work. People have to approach them with the right spiritual frequencies and, yeah, vibration and frequency
Yeah.
and personal
Yep.
energy. Energy, vibration, frequency. Those three things
Yep.
can allow you to literally, as Jesus Christ said, heal yourself. He
Yes,
said, you
sir.
can heal yourself. And,
Hmm.
and I have experienced people being healed with a hands-on therapy from other people, literally
We're living
being
in a
healed.
time, yeah, we're living in a time, as I listen to you, sir, where, and I know this may be a controversial statement, but so be it. Spirituality and science are finally meeting. That's what's happening here and working in unison.
Yep.
And I welcome it with open arms. And to paraphrase a few things you said, as you're absolutely right, Nikola Tesla, you want to understand the secrets of this universe, think in terms of frequency, vibration, and energy, as you've just stated. And I want to invoke this, and I'll put his name on record. He's a good friend. Empower 2000. You guys can go look it up. It's Dr. Joseph Peck. And Dr. Joseph Peck, and I can say this publicly because he has, he's now I'm inserting this. The level of med bed that he has used, I reported to me yesterday, 30 times frequency healing, light and frequency, vibration, as you're talking about. Uh, it may not be the full blown med beds that'll be, you coming down the line for all of us, but uh, my associate shared with me yesterday the graphs and charts and the findings, if you will, of the results of the med bed. So these things are very real. Dr. Joseph Peck, you guys can go look him up and learn a little bit more about him, but fascinating, fascinating time. So we are at a point where science and spirituality are coming together, off world, here on prison planet Earth, being liberated. Health and wealth is coming. And that leads us, because I always like to end things not on hopium, true hope, well founded hope, and positivity, sir. What does a golden age mean to you? And is that now, pardon me, I could use a med bed myself. Is that at is the golden age at our doorstep, sir? And what does it mean to you?
I believe the golden age is at our doorstep. And I've told some of your audience that there's two things. The golden age means to me that my 60-year-old wife, who has never had a child, will be able to have children because of the med beds. One. Number two, that she and I, can create a farm to teach the children to love the animals, the plants, and each other. And that we can also bring in people to work with us because it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of people
Mhm.
to work with us to teach them how to love the children and how to take care of the children. And from my perspective, the health and wealth revolution, or whatever we want to call it, is going to
Mhm.
enable me, because they're going to give me enough money or whatever else, resources, whatever, to be able to have probably around a 2,000 acre farm with horses, sheep, cattle, goats, pigs, chickens, ducks. I have a problem with geese, so I won't have any geese there. Geese are
Okay.
dirty. It's just my opinion. Um, and we'll be able to have a 2 to 3 acre farm producing all of the vegetables that the children will eat. We'll have a greenhouse that we can produce stuff all year. We don't need anything from outside. We're going to have an orchard with apples. Oranges are tough in Virginia, but apples and other other fruits that we can grow in the state of Virginia. That's what I see the abundance means to me. It's not about giving me a bunch of money so I can have a yacht. I could care less about having a yacht. I got a nice pickup truck outside. I don't need anything more than that. And we'll have a nice house because that'll be part of the farm. But that's what I see.
Well, that's a great vision and a great battle plan, and I'm sure it'll come to be as we move out of what we're trapped in into the liberation and freedom that mankind is experiencing. And we look forward to the celebrations on July 4th. Again, no expectations other than to expect the unexpected, but I think July 4th will brighten the light within us all. I certainly look forward to it. I want to thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox. Any other closing comments or statements or anything you'd like to bring to the surface as we say goodbye and sign off to our viewers?
I think your viewers need to be careful who and what they listen to. There are a lot of people out there who claim to know this, claim to know that. And my brother even sends me notes about this person claims this person claims that. I believe you have to get to those people that resonate with you, that your vibration, frequency, and energy levels feel strength from those people. And the reason that I do these with John and nobody else is because the energy, frequency, and vibration that I feel when we're doing these gives me energy, significant amounts. I could be as tired as can be. If I get on one of these, I can feel John's energy as we move forward. And that, to me, is very important. You must feel the energy of the person that's talking to you, the frequency and the vibration. If you can't feel it and you're just listening for the sake of listening, wrong answer. Because there are a lot of people out there who talk a lot of stuff and doesn't make sense. Anyway,
I hear you.
that's my
I hear you, and
comment.
I thank you for your kind words, and thank you for explaining that. And right back at you in terms of the frequency and the connectivity that you and I do have on the true levels and the high levels. And I know the lion's share of my audience feels that too. And your quote popularity as a result of our time together in the global defense war last year, this year, global financial reset, and now conversations of consequence is making a difference. And having you in my life has been a blessing. And I hope to meet you one day. I plan on coming back to the States, perhaps this latter half of 2027 for a visit. Be nice to break some bread with you, sir. Thank you very much, retired Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox. You'll see Tom, of course, on our Global Defense War panel. I want to thank you, sir, wishing you and your wife the very, very best. I'll be right back after this important announcement about healthcare.
The Truth About Health premieres this month as a weekly JMC Broadcasting production, with Christy Lee as your show host. Christy Lee is an award-winning former mainstream news anchor and independent journalist with more than 20 years of experience in broadcasting. Honored as Best Anchor and Best Enterprise Reporting honors, she later anchored at a Fox affiliate in California before walking away from legacy media after witnessing its deepening lack of journalistic integrity and shift toward propaganda. Christy is a fearless voice for the voiceless and a staunch advocate for holding power accountable. She's been featured on Fox News, The Bongino Report, InfoWars, Lindell TV, and numerous independent platforms nationwide. She has interviewed high-profile figures including RFK Jr., Dr. Robert Malone, General Michael Flynn, Ron Paul, Carrie Lake, and many more. The Truth About Health premieres June 2026 as a weekly JMC Broadcasting production. This weekly broadcast features expert doctors, scientists, and healthcare professionals. We don't reject science, we go further in it. We go beyond symptoms, headlines, and hype, bringing you the truth about what actually heals the body. Thorough healthcare coverage, including new technologies, legislation, and justice, will also be addressed. Sign up for free at jmcbroadcasting.com and tune into The Truth About Health with Christy Lee, only on jmcbroadcasting.com.
All right, quick announcement here. Come join us Thursday, June 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern in our private Zoom room. Mike King, 1 solid hour live on screen. I'll be there as your host. Mike's there to answer your questions. It's a Q&A for 1 solid hour. How do you participate? You visit jmcbroadcasting.com, click on Premium Portal, learn about those options, see if it's a fit for you. If it is, we very much look forward to seeing you there each and every month. Our audience participation is growing, and growing. We had Juan O'Savin last month. We're honored to have Mike King, June 25th, 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you very much for considering joining us. And I want to thank you, our audience, for spending time with me and my extraordinary guest, retired Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox. Greatly appreciate his service to this nation in and out of uniform. It's an amazing time to be alive. He's always fascinating, challenging, and intriguing, and informative to listen to, and consider him a good friend. I'll be back next month here on Conversations of Consequence. And don't forget to watch our military intelligence and economic, now healthcare reporting here at jmcbroadcasting.com. Our broadcasting guide, like the TV guide, it's on the homepage of our website, as well as the current broadcasts are also featured on the homepage of our website. You can click on the Follow tab and follow us on YouTube or Rumble or X or Truth Social or Facebook, whatever flavor you like best. And we also, of course, have all of our shows, as I said, archived. Sign up for free for our newsletter, for my weekly off-camera, audio-only JMC Unplugged, a little more casual, getting some insights into me and some things I'm not sharing necessarily on the broadcast. So sign up for free, jmcbroadcasting.com. I want to thank everybody very much for your time and attention. Please share this far and wide. Stay safe, and may God be with you.